And to Canadians in Alberta and Saskatchewan, know that you are an essential part of our great country. I've heard your frustration, and I want to be there to support you. Let us all work hard to bring our country together.
Well, the ballots are all counted, and unsurprisingly, Canada has ended up with a Liberal minority government. But is this story over? Laurie Goldstein is with me. This is one of those sorts of situations where in two provinces in Western Canada, Saskatchewan and Alberta, the Liberals were completely wiped out. It has been said that you could drive from Winnipeg to Vancouver Centre and not have one Liberal representing any of those ridings in between. So now what does this mean moving forward?
Well, it means, first of all, we don't really have a national government. It's a government with these huge holes in the resource-rich middle of the country. It's a government that was only supported by a third of Canadians, fewer Canadians than supported the Conservative Party. But that said, they're the government. They won. Those are the rules. We don't do it by a total vote. We do it by who can control the confidence of the House. But let's look at that. Where is all the pressure on Trudeau? It's to go further left. It's to spend more. Because the parties that he has to appeal to, particularly the NDP, the Greens, and the Bloc, there's another thing. We have a reinvigorated separatist party in Quebec. I think the big challenge for this government is going to be, frankly, particularly given that it has no representatives in Saskatchewan or Alberta, is we need a pipeline. All this stuff about climate change and all that, okay. No other country in the world would cut its economic throat the way we are by not exploiting our oil and gas resources that are landlocked in the middle of the country. The reason we need a pipeline is to get those resources to what's called tidewater, which means basically the oceans, so that we can then transport that oil and gas all around the world to make money. Even Trudeau says, what's the reason for that? It's to use those profits to fund the transition into a green economy. Okay, great. But the problem is, because we can't get our oil to tidewater, and there's a backup, we don't have enough capacity, we basically have one market now. It's the United States. You know what happens when there's only one market? Our oil is already expensive out of the oil sands. It takes more to process. But when you've only got one market, we are losing billions and billions of dollars every year. It is insane. It's insane.
And so instead, we're buying from Saudi Arabia, for example.
Some of the world's worst dictators.
So, but in terms of priorities, I always sort of dub, the West as the flyover states for the Liberals, because they just fly over them. They don't get electoral success there, so it's almost like they can ignore it. But they sent a pretty strong message last night. You've heard Jason Kenney, the Premier of Alberta, say things like, perhaps there are things we need to learn from the separatists in Quebec in terms of really leveraging our strength to get something out of the central government. There's a lot of frustration. But there doesn't seem to be an urgency to actually get the pipeline done, and it would seem to me that they would be more anxious to work with the so-called progressives, like the NDP and the three Green Party members, in order to get national pharmacare through, things that are very perhaps broad conversations public policy conversations we need to have in this country, but very, very expensive. That would, I think if we look at Trudeau's first 100 days, let's say, it seems to me that the pipeline wouldn't be the priority.
No, but that it's not what. That's the problem. Trudeau always thinks that his priority is the national priority. It's just not. I mean, if we don't deal with this issue, I don't think the West would separate, but we will have a broken federation. How did Trudeau campaign? In Quebec, he told them to fight the Conservative Premier of Alberta and the Conservative Premier of Ontario. Rather than building bridges, which is what a leader does, he was breaking them. He was burning them down. Interesting that Doug Ford congratulated Trudeau. It seems like some folks in Ontario realize, look, we got a lot of stuff to do. We better start doing it. But at the end of the day, you can talk about climate change, you can do all those things. Either we get a pipeline or we don't. That to me is the priority for this government. And if it doesn't do it, 2 or 3 years from now when we have this election again, I shudder to think what the results might be.
And it's a very frustrating situation for those that are in Western Canada. Log on to Facebook and Twitter, let us know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And when do you think we'll be back at the polls? Will it be 2 years, 3 years? Who knows?